Today we cooked a 16-pound turkey in our sun oven with nothing but the power of the sun. Pretty amazing.
Hi, I'm Kylene.
And I'm Jonathan, and we are the Provident Preppers. Your ability to cook with the sun is a fantastic addition to your preparedness arsenal.
In this video, we'll discuss exactly what makes solar cooking a good emergency cooking option. We'll review the basics of solar cooking and some advantages and disadvantages that you should know about. Stay with us.
How are you going to cook your food when disaster strikes? Let's talk a little bit about emergency cooking with solar energy.
I absolutely love solar cooking, and I use it as part of my daily life. One of the best parts about using solar energy during an emergency situation is that it enables you to use that free energy that the sun so abundantly provides for us to stretch your other fuel supplies. Other fuels are very expensive and they require space to store, and some of them are quite dangerous. However, solar cooking takes advantage of that free, abundant energy that is stored on the sun to make sure that we can cook our food.
The science behind solar cooking is fairly simple. Solar energy is allowed to enter into the sun oven. That sun oven acts as a greenhouse and absorbs and holds that energy, which allows the food to be cooked. The black interior and black cooking vessels work best because they allow that solar energy to be absorbed. The UV index that allows the optimal cooking is 7 or higher, and that generally occurs between about 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., depending on your location.
And you can cook when the UV is not 7. You just won't be able to achieve the higher temperatures. The cookware that you use in solar cooking makes a difference. While the thin black pots are optimal, I use a lot of glass pans because that's what I like to cook in. And I use my regular bread pans when I'm making bread. When we bake a turkey in the sun oven, we use an oven-safe roasting bag. The trick is not to use any reflective cookware because that cookware will reflect the energy back. There are several different types of solar cookers, and we're going to review just a few of them. My favorite is the solar box oven.
As you can see, this solar box oven utilizes a black interior with a leveling tray so that as you tip that oven up and down to catch optimal solar energy, that leveling tray keeps your food level. It has a glass lid that allows that energy to flow in, but keeps the heat from coming back out. And it's got the reflector panels on the sides to bring in more energy. In this picture, you can see a large solar box cooker in the background there. In the foreground, you can see a parabolic cooker. This is another form of solar cooker, and they do a really great job.
But when it comes to solar cookers, buyer beware, because not all solar cookers or solar ovens are created equally.
From an engineer's perspective, this is kind of a cool little tool. It's got the dark interior, it's got the glass door on top, it's got the reflector side panels that help to bring in more solar energy, and it utilizes an electric backup so that if you are in the cooking process and you start losing your solar energy, it thermostatically turns on and allows the cooking to continue. Now, in reality, if you are cooking in an emergency situation, there's a good chance you wouldn't have the electric energy to finish that. But the thought is kind of an interesting and useful thought.
The thought is, and that's an engineer perspective, but from a domestic goddess perspective, it was not such a good thing. So this oven arrives and it's very, very shallow. So I couldn't bake a normal loaf of bread in this oven. I had to take out this pan where I could make these little mini loaves in it. And it came with stainless steel pans that had been spray painted black, like you could scratch off the spray paint. And so for me, it was a little bit annoying, but Jonathan really liked the engineer perspective and the versatility of it. And so I took my global sun oven and we had a head-to-head bake-off using our ovens. And his oven actually heated up quicker than mine, but then mine achieved temperature and surpassed his. So my global sun oven totally kick the butt of his one from India with the electric backup. The point here is that you really need to be careful what you're buying. Make sure that you carefully look at the reviews and find out whether or not this is a quality product.
That's right.
Of course I'm right.
You do need to be careful, but there are some really great designs out there and some great products out there. The technology has matured a lot, and so be careful, look around, and you can find some really great products.
We've experimented with some homemade solar ovens. I got this design offline and I copied it almost exactly, except for instead of putting the pot directly on the ground, I actually put it on a little baking rack so that it would be held off the ground, so that it wouldn't conduct any of that cold from the ground into the pot, and so that there was plenty of airflow. But it was really interesting because this never got to a temperature where it could cook food at all. Total fail.
This is a solar funnel cooker that was designed by Dr. Stephen Jones. When I first saw this design, I thought, well, that's kind of hokey, probably wouldn't work very well. In reality, it works really well, but it's not my wife's favorite.
It's not. So the truth is, John's mom bought him a kit that Dr. Jones was selling at a conference, and he looked at it and he put it on the shelf and said, this is just, whatever. And then later I went to Dr. Stephen Jones' class several years later and came home and said, John, this is really cool. And he's like, I totally have that on my shelf. And as we looked at it and explored it, we set it up and we started working with it. And then we kind of tweaked the design just a little bit that fit us just a little bit better. It actually works really, really well. The problem is you're putting your food into a canning jar because that creates kind of a pressure vessel. And if you've ever tried to bake bread in a canning jar or get cake out of it, it's a mess. I think this design is fantastic for pasteurizing water or maybe soup. But other than that, it's just not really functional and practical for a domestic goddess like me. It takes an engineer to do all this kind of stuff. I prefer my solar box oven. However, this could be created just out of things that you might have around the house. So in a real emergency, the knowledge that you have about how to create this and how to cook using solar energy just might be able to get the job done.
You can click the card in the upper corner there for some complete instructions. This is a picture of a homemade solar box oven that was at a conference that I attended on solar energy. And as part of this conference, they made lunch for us using these solar cookers. And they actually do a really good job. This is another design made by a friend of ours. This one happens to be on wheels so he could pull it wherever he wanted. As you can see, this is similar to some of the other designs that we've looked at. It has a cooking area covered with glass and then a reflector that helps bring in more solar energy.
And his wife told me that she can cook 6 loaves of bread in this oven at a time, which is actually amazing because that amount of mass takes a lot of solar energy to cook. When we're talking about emergency cooking, solar energy definitely has some advantages that we'd like to review with you. The first is that it has abundant free fuel for cooking. That fuel requires no space to store and it won't blow anything up. When you are cooking with solar energy, there are no toxic fumes or smoke. There's no open flame, which means there's no risk of starting any kind of a fire. For those hardcore preppers out there, it's silent. And there are very minimal cooking smells that come from it because everything is contained. One of the big advantages for me is that you can pasteurize water using a solar oven and disinfect it, making it safe to drink. And the final thing is that many of these devices are portable, and regardless of the situation, you may be able to take your solar device with you. In an emergency, clean drinking water is critical. It is one of your top priorities. A solar oven can disinfect water through the pasteurization process very easily. Pasteurization occurs when water reaches 149 degrees and is held there for 6 minutes. You can achieve pasteurization once water reaches higher temperatures much quicker. But there is also a device called a WAPI, or a water pasteurization indicator, that you can get that will tell you exactly when your water is pasteurized if you don't have a thermometer. In this photo, we are pasteurizing water using canning jars and just regular jars. All the jars have been cleaned out, filled with water, and placed into the solar oven. The solar energy then does its job and pasteurizes that water for us, making it safe to drink. One of the best things about solar cooking is that not only is it kid-friendly, but it's foolproof and busy mom-proof. I will put brownies in my sun oven and take off to school and pick up the kids, get distracted, be a half an hour late, and when I come back, those brownies haven't burned. They're still okay, and that is part of the magic of solar cooking. During an emergency or a disaster, food becomes very precious. And cooking with a solar oven may help to reduce waste through no more burnt meals.
As we mentioned, solar cooking is very safe. There's no open flame. There's almost zero fire risk unless you're using one of those parabolic cookers. And I did hear of a case where that parabolic cooker was set just right and the sun ended up burning down a little shack that was next to it. But otherwise, I think you're pretty safe.
I don't think my box cooker could do that.
Nope.
Solar cooking is incredibly versatile. If you look at the photo in the lower right-hand corner, you will see a 16-pound turkey cooking in that box oven. And then we're baking bread, and later on that day, we also made a cobbler. The things that you can cook and create in a solar oven are unlimited. If you can cook it in your oven at home, you can cook something similar in your solar cooker. And solar cooking is not just a summer activity.
We've had some great success cooking in the winter. You have to have the right conditions. In other words, your UV index has to be fairly high, but you can achieve that on a clear winter day. You can see in this case it was a 10-degree day outside with snow on the ground, and yet we had some really good success cooking.
In order to achieve success under these conditions, I did need to create the optimal circumstances, which meant that I put the food inside of the black enamel pot that is specifically designed to cook with the sun oven.
We really love solar cooking, but there are a few disadvantages or limitations associated with it. Obviously, you are completely dependent upon the sunshine. If you don't have the sun, it's really not going to work well. If it's a cold, windy day, that cold wind is going to pull that energy away from that oven fairly quickly. Solar ovens frequently cook at lower temperatures than you would have on your kitchen stove or in your kitchen oven, and your cooking time is going to vary. One day it might take 30 minutes to cook whatever you are cooking. The next day it might take an hour. It's just very much variable.
And so for me, I have found that, for instance, when I bake bread doesn't work really well when the oven's only 275 degrees. Will it bake? Yes. The bread might raise and raise, but it never really gets that beautiful brown, golden baked look. Other days, I can bake that same loaf of bread and it will only take 30 minutes and it's golden brown and beautiful, much more beautiful than what comes out of my oven. So it just depends on the day. And so that isn't a disadvantage. However, the fact that you can cook this without using up your valuable fuel stores is incredible. Solar cooking is great when the circumstances are right for it. But you really must plan for alternative emergency cooking options.
Some of those other cooking options include alcohol that you can see there in the center. On the left-hand side, you can see a Kelly kettle, which just uses biomass, sticks and little bits of pine cone or whatever you can find, and it does an amazing job of cooking. We absolutely love our wood-burning cook stove, and we use it a lot in the wintertime. Obviously, it's not going to be a great tool in the summertime, but it does an amazing job of cooking on the stovetop and in the oven.
But the sun oven does do an amazing job in the summertime, keeping our kitchen cool. Whatever your choice of emergency cooking options are, make sure that you have the ability to cook indoors as well as outdoors, and that you can safely cook food for your family without creating toxic fumes in your home.
We hope that you'll take a look at these great resources: solar ovens, cooking with the sun in an emergency, and every day, solar cooking, clean, abundant, free energy, and solar funnel cooker, step-by-step instructions.
Those are the instructions for that solar funnel cooker from Dr. Stephen Jones, so you're going to really want to make sure, if that's what you want to do, check that out.
Check out theprovidentprepper.org or our YouTube channel, The Provident Prepper, for an amazing amount of great information.
Solar cooking is an absolutely amazing tool. One of the greatest benefits is that the fuel stores safely on the sun, which means it is safe, free, abundant, and it doesn't take up storage space.
And now for the question of the day. What experience do you have using solar cooking every day or during an emergency? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.